Hello, this is our Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing a game from Epcot and McPlayer US. This was played in team event number 53, which just started, and it's in the under 2200 section. Let's have a look. Okay. This move is the designated point of the Catalan system, or Catalan opening, and black plays it what they call, I guess, Bogo Indian style. And black's move is interesting. Now he plays bishop e7, which is probably theory somewhere. I'm not familiar with it. A common move is to play queen e7 here and guard the bishop, so that if there's an exchange on b4, black will happily trade queens and just try to play for a draw. And in a team event, playing for a draw with black is fine. Win with white, draw with black. So knight c6 could be playable. And of course you can even take on d2, that's a line, and white should take back with the queen, preserving c3 for a knight. But anyway, those are just alternatives you can study on your own. I want to get to the nitty-gritty. So this seems to be a mistake that white didn't take advantage of, and I'll show you a line. White has 3 men attacking d5, and black only has 2 protecting it. So black has some tricks here, but I'll show you. Let's just look at a couple of things real quick. Okay, pawn takes. Now if white goes in for knight takes, black has some resources here. He goes and attacks the bishop. Now the bishop is doubly attacked and has to move, and he can either drop back to g2 or the tactical b3, bearing down on the queen side or king side. And in either case, let's try this one. Black regains his pawn here, and even if white tries knight f3, black could take on b2. And suddenly black has a pawn ahead and a 3-on-1 majority. White gets a little play, but I'm not sure if it's enough. And of course the bishop on g2 could be on b3 in this situation. Or white could play bishop c3 here and aim for a queen exchange. But this looks kind of level here. Black shouldn't fear this. It's black's move. He could play c6. He could play castles. Either move should be fine, but just to show you the other possibility that white had was after taking on this square, is that white could try bishop takes d5 instead, and this puts a whole different wrinkle in the equation. I suppose black could play knight b6 here, but just for example, if knight takes d5, knight takes d5. Now, when black uncovers his little discovery on the knight on d5, white exchanges on e7 and tries to keep his pawn. So I'm not exactly sure about all the lines. I'm not going to try to analyze it out. I just wanted to point it out. It's something for the players to tell us what they thought. I saw the possibility and I just wondered about it, but let's see, knight b6. Now you're going to be after that pawn again, but white should be okay here. Now if he takes the pawn, white just brings out knight f3, gaining some time on the queen, and white's a little ahead in development here. So possibly a missed opportunity by white. Black took 3 minutes to prepare for that move, and white spent a good 11 minutes, so we'll give him credit for seeing more in his 11 minutes than I've seen in my 2 minutes, and move on. Okay. But you never know unless you analyze these things out. Sometimes you can spend 40 minutes, 45, 50 minutes on one move and it'll be a mistake. So it's up to the players to burn the midnight oil and tell us what's right and wrong with some of those ideas. Okay. Black's playing very solid here. Really has nothing to fear. And now this kind of takes on a symmetrical approach by exchanging with the c6 pawn. White no longer has any kind of minority attack possibilities that we've seen in Queen's Gambit decline type positions. Black has kind of a problem piece. That bishop on c8 doesn't have a heck of a lot of scope. And right now his knight on d7 is kind of in his way because it's keeping the queen from moving up to D7 where it might want to go just so the rooks can get connected. And this will become a little apparent in a few moves. A3, I guess, to take away B4. Really not much is happening. This game is very, very even. And this is an interesting move. White's eyeballing C7, would like to maybe get a rook down there. And I'm not so much sure about that move. Let's see. I guess it's okay, but you still got this guy over here on C8 that needs to come, or A8 that needs to get in the game. However, knight E4 does a few things. It clears a path for knight D7 to F6, so the queen can go to D7, and hopefully White can't generate anything in the meantime with rook C1, moving the knight and then plopping the rook down on C7. But so the game's still relatively even, and here, like I say, if knight F6, suppose White tries knight A4, and that doesn't really give that knight much scope, but Black has a chance to play rook C8. Let's see. So maybe here, now maybe take here. Well, he can always take with the pawn and tempo the knight and then play rook C8. But here we're just trying to let White do his plan and see what Black can do. Does Black have any resources here? Yeah, I would say he does. You've got to safeguard that bishop first, but eventually maybe G5 will be a threat. And if anything, we can probably chase the rook out with bishop D6. But this is up to the players to show us more of the possibilities. But anyway, G5, I don't know. I just don't like that move. It's okay, but it's kind of impulsive. We've talked about impulsive moves in my chess lessons that I offer, most recent video number 8. One of the problems with it is essentially Black doesn't need to overpress anything here. He's quite solid. Black's game is fine. This move can create some potential weaknesses in the Black position. So it's better at this stage to just kind of play a balanced approach. You could play rook C8 here, and now the possibilities of White getting rook C7 in some of the lines don't exist. White could try to provoke a weakness with queen A4, but the B pawn should be, or A7 pawn should be fine. It can always go to A6, and it's sitting okay. So development is usually a good idea anytime in the opening, and right now Black isn't fully developed yet. Black still has to develop his rook on A8 and his queen on D8. So G5 does take the bishop off a good diagonal, but really White wasn't doing much with that bishop just yet. The idea of getting rook C7 is still just a ways away. So it was an unnecessary move by Black. He could just play one of those other moves and let White prove he has something. So let's kind of see what happens. And I'm not so sure about exchanging that knight, although in a way you kind of have to. You can't play the knight on D7 to F6 because now G5 is hanging. You could stop and play H6, but then you've just admitted you've made a mistake by weakening your king side and not being able to develop with rook C8. But knight takes just seems to get rid of a white piece that didn't have a lot of scope to begin with. I showed it when I went into A4. It didn't really have any place to go, and really it doesn't have any place to go there. But now White gets his rook on a better square. Now White's ready to double or even triple on the C file. You can see queen C2, rook C1. Obviously, Black will have time to answer that, prepare against that. But why give your opponent a lot of play when you don't have to? Okay, so and here once again, here's another, I think, impulsive move. That pawn on G4 can get very weak here, and then very near future. Let's see what White does. Okay, he plays knight D2. Now, really, White isn't demonstrating a whole lot in this position. none of his pieces are really working in harmony. His best developed piece is his rook on c3, but it's not working in combination with anything. Although by pushing g4, black has gone ahead and given f4 back to the white bishop. So unless black deals with that, some different things can happen here that black may not like. Like bishop g5 might be a mistake because white exchanges and then gets rook c7 in. So the queen is kind of tied down at the moment, guarding c7. Let's see what happens. Okay, again, kind of an impulsive move, but in a way maybe it's necessary to just secure this pawn so it doesn't become a problem. But now e6 is weak, but white's not poised to exploit it. But still, we've got these two problem pieces here. They're not developed yet, and white can just go ahead with queen c2, as I said, and be ready to triple on the open file. And really, what's black doing as far as a demonstration for attacking on the king side? There's really no direct attack for black. It's going to take him several moves to generate anything. Okay, for instance, queen e8, 1, queen h5, 2, rook f6, 3, and rook h6, 4. So it's going to take him 4 moves to just attack h2, and then white gets 3 moves to improve his position, and his 4th move is knight f1, holding the h2 down. So anyway, white comes up with a good move since he's ahead in development. And if anything, maybe black should bite the bullet here and just play h5 and seek to keep the pawn structure symmetrical. I wouldn't suggest taking on f3, but h5 would have probably been a better choice. But bishop d6 was a mistake, and now black's impetuous moves are going to get him in trouble really quick, because white just starts creating weaknesses in the black position, and bishop h6 is a fine move to exploit that. And you'll see here in a moment. Okay, now I've talked about the principle of 2 weaknesses in lesson 8, and black has 2 weaknesses. Here they are. It's g4 and e6, and white finds a way to exploit both of them rather nicely, and the game just turns into white's favor. Now notice black doesn't have h5 guarding g4, so this pawn is pretty much a goner, and you drop a pawn and you're at the disadvantage. So black tries a little counterplay, and I only have a couple minutes, so I'll run through this kind of quick. White handles his advantage very nicely. So now white's captured 1 pawn, gotten rid of 1 black weakness, but there's another weakness in the black position. That's there on e6. But let's just see what happens. Okay. And white regains his pawn, but black has plenty of good moves here, and black can't stop and take on b2 because f7 hangs. So he comes back and offers a queen trade. Now black's just given up a second pawn, and pretty much the game is over because white just starts consolidating pieces. His pieces. He's got an attack on d6. And look, there's that rook on a8, still undeveloped, never came in. And white just has resources. He just takes another pawn. Now, for the moment, white's 2 pawns up. And what can black do about it? Black's got he's down a pawn majority of 2-1 on the king side, and white has a pass pawn in the center of the board. Now white just says, let's trade queens and I'll win the ending. And white's really not in a hurry to trade queens. That queen's not going anywhere. But now white has better moves. The black position on the queen side is exposed. The queen's attacking all 3 of black's other pieces, and black's got to be very careful here. So now look at that, pinning the knight. Even though it's not really pinned, the knight is guarding the rook on b8, and black generates some nuisance checks, but really there was no hope. Black just is losing. He's going to drop everything here. So white can defend any of these threats and end up with a winning game, which is exactly what he did. And we're one move away from mate. If king h5, g4 is mate, I think. Let's see. Should be. Yep. Okay. Great game, white. Thanks for your time.